The Karani had always been different from other species in the Galactic Federation. Where others sought power and expansion, the peaceful, blue-skinned humanoids from Carol Prime chose knowledge and harmony. Their crystalline cities gleamed like jewels across 3 continents, and their songs could heal both body and spirit. They were philosophers, artists, and dreamers who had never raised a weapon in anger. Captain Marcus Steele remembered the day he first met Ambassador Valona of the Karani delegation. It was during the Terran Accords, when humanity was still fighting for basic recognition in galactic politics. While other species dismissed Earth as a primitive backwater, the Karani stood firm. "We see potential in humanity," Valona had said, her melodic voice carrying conviction. "Your species has fire in them, but also compassion. This combination is rare among the stars. For 12 years, the Karani were humanity's only true allies. When the Zephyrian Empire imposed trade sanctions on Earth, the Karani shared their technology freely. When the Galactic Council voted to restrict human expansion, the Karani delegation walked out in protest. They called humans their Star Brothers and opened their worlds to human refugees fleeing persecution. The relationship between Earth and Carol Prime grew stronger with each passing year. Human engineers learned from Karani crystal tech, while Karani scientists marveled at human adaptability. Cultural exchanges flourished as human music blended with Karani harmonics, creating something beautiful and new. But the galaxy's power brokers grew nervous. The Hegemony Coalition, led by the militant Vorthan Empire, saw the human-Karani alliance as a threat to their dominance. Behind closed doors, they whispered about the contamination of peaceful species by human aggression. They spoke of necessary interventions and protective measures. Intelligence officer Diana Cross intercepted communications between coalition worlds 3 days before the attack. The coded messages spoke of quarantine protocols and cleansing operations. She immediately contacted her superior, Fleet Commander Jonas Webb, but bureaucratic delays prevented the warning from reaching Carol Prime in time. The first wave of coalition ships arrived at Carol Prime during the Festival of Eternal Light, when the entire planet celebrated with luminous displays visible from orbit. The Karani had no military fleet, no defensive stations, no weapons of war. They greeted the incoming vessels with songs of welcome, believing them to be unexpected visitors seeking to join their celebration. The bombardment lasted 6 hours. Particle beams turned crystal cities into glass craters. Orbital platforms dropped kinetic strikes on population centers. The Karani's peaceful songs were replaced by screams that echoed across subspace frequencies, reaching human monitoring stations 17 light-years away. When the destruction was complete, coalition forces broadcast their justification to the galaxy. They claimed the Karani had been infected by human militarism and posed a threat to galactic peace. The intervention was necessary to prevent the spread of human aggression to other peaceful species. But the coalition had made one critical error. They assumed humanity would accept this atrocity as they had accepted previous humiliations. They were wrong. The news reached Earth through emergency subspace channels at 0347 hours, Terran Standard Time. Fleet Commander Jonas Webb stood in the war room beneath Terra Station, watching the incoming data streams with growing horror. Satellite feeds showed Carol Prime's surface scarred beyond recognition. The beautiful crystal cities were gone, replaced by smoking craters and rivers of molten glass. Casualty estimates. Webb's voice was steady, but his hands trembled as he gripped the command console. Lieutenant Colonel Rachel Torres, Webb's intelligence chief, consulted her tactical display. Preliminary scans indicate total planetary sterilization, sir. Population before the attack was 4.7 billion. Current life signs, she paused, swallowing hard. Negligible. The silence in the war room was deafening. These weren't just statistics on a screen. Many of the humans present had friends, colleagues, and loved ones on Carol Prime. The cultural exchange programs had created deep bonds between the two species. Ambassador Velona's daughter, Kiraya, had been studying human literature at Terra University. She was due to graduate next month. Now she would never see her homeworld again, never hear her people's songs carried on Carol Prime's crystal winds. Webb activated the quantum communication array. Within minutes, he was connected to every human colony, station, and outpost across 17 star systems. The faces on his screens showed the same mixture of shock, grief, and growing anger that he felt in his own heart. "The tyranny stood with us when no one else would," Webb said, his voice carrying across the vastness of space to every human settlement. "They called us Star Brothers. They opened their worlds to our refugees. They shared their knowledge and their friendship freely, asking nothing in return except our mutual respect." Governor Patricia Valdez of New Geneva Colony was the first to speak. "What's the plan, Jonas? We can't let this stand." "The coalition has superior numbers and technology," Admiral Thomas Reeves of the Outer Rim Defense Force pointed out. "A direct assault would be suicide." Webb's expression hardened. "Then we don't fight their way, we fight our way." Deep in classified archives, dusty protocols were being retrieved and examined. Project Ghostwalk had been shelved for 20 years, deemed too extreme for conventional warfare. The Erebus initiative, once considered too risky for deployment, was suddenly receiving fresh funding and personnel. Dr. Nathan Pierce, head of the Terra Advanced Research Division, contacted Webb directly. "Commander, we have assets they don't know about. Ships, weapons, technologies we've been developing in secret since the first trade sanctions. The Coalition thinks they know what humanity is capable of. They're about to learn how wrong they are." Across human space, reserve fleets began moving from hidden bases. These weren't the patrol ships and system defense platforms the galaxy had seen before. These were vessels born from humanity's darkest imagination, designed during the years when diplomatic solutions seemed impossible. The HSV Retribution slipped from its berth in the asteroid belt's shadow. The HSV Nemesis powered up its drives near Pluto's dark side. Dozens of ships emerged from hiding places throughout the Sol system, their hulls painted void black and their crews hungry for justice. But this wouldn't be a conventional war. Humanity had learned patience during their years of diplomatic isolation. They had studied their enemies, mapped their weaknesses, and prepared for this moment with methodical precision. The Coalition had killed the tyranny to send a message about the price of befriending humanity. Now humanity would send a message of their own. The galaxy was about to remember why humans had once been feared as much as they were dismissed. The hunt was about to begin. The first Coalition target was the military installation at Zerion Base, a fortress world that served as the regional headquarters for hegemony forces. Fleet Admiral Korvash of the Vorthan Empire had personally overseen the Carol Prime operation from this command center, broadcasting orders that turned a peaceful world into a graveyard. Captain Riley Blackwood commanded the HSV Shadow's Edge, the lead ship in humanity's opening strike. Her vessel was a product of 15 years of secret development, incorporating technologies that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Adaptive camouflage made her ship nearly invisible to conventional sensors, while quantum phase torpedoes could bypass most defensive shields. "Distance to target," Blackwood asked her navigation officer. 30,000 kilometers and closing. Zerion Base has increased patrol frequency since Carol Prime, but their sensor grid still has gaps. Blackwood studied the tactical display. The Coalition thought they understood human capabilities based on outdated intelligence from diplomatic encounters. They were scanning for conventional signatures, energy patterns, and drive emissions that the new human ships no longer produced. The shadow's edge drifted through space like a fragment of the void itself. Her crew of 43 volunteers had trained for this mission for 2 years, practicing maneuvers in asteroid fields and dead space where no coalition sensors could detect them. Weapons status? Blackwood inquired. Lieutenant Commander Eric Frost checked his console. Quantum phase torpedoes loaded and ready. Targeting computer has marked 17 critical systems. One shot and their entire command structure goes dark. But the mission wasn't just about destruction. Hidden in the torpedo's warhead was something far more valuable than explosives. Dr. Pierce had developed a specialized data mining virus that could extract and transmit coalition military secrets in the seconds before detonation. The attack came without warning. Ozerian base's defensive systems registered no threat until the quantum phase torpedo materialized inside their primary command center. The explosion vaporized 3 levels of the installation, killing Admiral Korvash and his entire staff. In the chaos that followed, the virus transmitted terabytes of classified data to human intelligence networks. But the psychological impact was even greater than the physical damage. The coalition had believed their fortress worlds were impregnable. The idea that humans could strike at the heart of their military infrastructure challenged everything they thought they knew about Terran capabilities. Similar attacks followed in rapid succession. The HSV Vengeance destroyed a coalition supply depot at Tralix Prime. The HSV Justice eliminated a communications array that coordinated 3 star systems. Each strike was precise, targeted, and completely unexpected. Coalition forces scrambled to respond, but they were fighting shadows. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating efficiency, and vanished before defensive forces could react. Traditional warfare doctrines proved useless against an enemy that refused to engage in conventional battles. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as one of the most powerful military coalitions in known space was systematically dismantled by a species they had dismissed as primitive, but humanity was just getting started. Intelligence officer Diana Cross had been busy during the months following Carol Prime's destruction. Her networks of informants and surveillance systems had identified every coalition world, every supply line, every hidden base. She knew which planets had participated in the massacre and which had simply looked the away. Phase 2 is ready for implementation, Cross reported to Fleet Commander Webb. We have target lists for 47 coalition worlds, complete with defensive assessments and civilian population distributions. Webb nodded grimly. Rules of engagement remain the same. Military targets only. We're not like them. But the coalition was beginning to understand the scope of their miscalculation. The humans weren't fighting for territory or resources. They were fighting for memory, for justice, for the friends who could never sing again. And that made them far more dangerous than any conventional enemy. The ghosts in the void were just beginning their dance of retribution. The Coalition War Council convened in emergency session on Nexus Prime, the hegemony's capital world. Around the circular table sat representatives from 12 different species, their faces showing various expressions of confusion, fear, and anger. The confident mood from 3 months ago had evaporated like morning mist. Supreme Chancellor Kethvar of the Vortan Empire slammed his 4-fingered fist on the table. How are they doing this? Our intelligence reports claimed humans had barely achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. General Zixara of the Mantis Confederation consulted her tactical display. We've lost 17 major installations, 43 supply convoys, and 2 entire patrol fleets. Yet our forces have never even seen a human ship during combat. They strike like phantoms and disappear. It's their new technology. Admiral Threnix of the Aquatic Dominion gurgled through his breathing apparatus. Somehow they've developed weapons and stealth systems decades ahead of our projections. But the technology was only part of the story. What truly made the human campaign devastating was their patience and precision. Unlike the Coalition's overwhelming assault on Keral Prime, human forces struck with surgical accuracy. They targeted command centers, supply depots, communication hubs, and manufacturing facilities while leaving civilian populations untouched. Captain Jessica Morgan of the HSV Reaper exemplified this approach during the Battle of Corvin Station. The mining platform housed both military personnel and 10,000 civilian workers from a dozen different species. Coalition defenders expected the humans to avoid the target or accept massive collateral damage. Instead, Morgan's team spent 3 weeks studying the station's layout, learning guard rotations, and identifying the exact location of every non-combatant. When they finally struck, the attack was so precise that the military command center was destroyed while the civilian quarters remained completely intact. The psychological warfare was equally effective. Dr. Pierce's intelligence viruses had extracted vast amounts of Coalition military data, revealing embarrassing secrets and internal corruption. Anonymous broadcasts began appearing on Coalition worlds, exposing war crimes, illegal weapons testing, and the personal wealth accumulated by military leaders while their soldiers died in pointless conflicts. But the most devastating revelation came from the Keral Prime archives themselves. Coalition forces had been sloppy during their massacre, assuming no one would ever investigate. Human intelligence teams had recovered enough evidence to prove that the attack was planned months in advance, with detailed targeting lists and casualty projections. The galaxy watched in horror as the evidence was broadcast across every major communication network. The Coalition's justification of necessary intervention crumbled in the face of documents showing they had specifically targeted schools, hospitals, and cultural centers. The massacre wasn't a military operation. It was genocide. Public opinion began shifting on Coalition worlds. Species that had supported the Karani operation found themselves questioning their leaders' motives. Protest movements emerged on Vorthan Prime, demanding accountability for the genocide. The Aquatic Dominion formally withdrew from the Coalition, citing moral objections to the campaign. Fleet Commander Webb stood on the bridge of the HSV Retribution, Earth's flagship in the Shadow War. His tactical display showed Coalition forces in full retreat across 17 star systems. Their military infrastructure was in ruins, their communication networks compromised, and their political unity shattered. "Sir, we're receiving surrender. Offers from 6 Coalition worlds," Lieutenant Colonel Torres reported. "They're requesting immediate ceasefire negotiations." Webb's expression remained stern. The Karani sang songs of peace for 3,000 years. They never harmed anyone, never threatened anyone, never sought anything but friendship and knowledge. The Coalition silenced those voices forever. He turned to face his bridge crew, humans who had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never see Earth again. "But we're not the Coalition. We don't wage war against innocents. Signal all human forces to stand down from offensive operations. We'll accept their surrender." The Shadow War was ending, but the galaxy would never forget the lesson humanity had taught. The species that had once been dismissed as primitive had proven themselves capable of precision, patience, and justice. They had honored their fallen allies while showing mercy to their defeated enemies. The Karani were gone, but their memory would live on in the stars. 6 months after the last Coalition world surrendered, construction began on New Keral in the Epsilon Eridani system. The planet was similar to the original Keral Prime, with vast oceans and crystalline formations that caught starlight in brilliant displays. It would never replace what was lost, but it would serve as a living memorial to friendship and sacrifice. Captain Riley Blackwood stood in the observation deck of the orbital construction platform, watching human and alien engineers work side by side. The surviving Karani numbered fewer than 10,000, scattered across refugee camps throughout human space. But they had chosen to return to something resembling their homeland, to rebuild what the coalition had tried to destroy forever. Ambassador Valona, now the leader of her people's remnant, approached the viewing window. Age and grief had silvered her blue skin, but her eyes still held the wisdom that had first impressed humanity decades ago. "Your species has done something remarkable," she said, her melodic voice softer now, but no less beautiful. "You fought. A war without becoming the thing you fought against." Blackwood nodded, watching construction drones position the first crystal spires of New Keral's capital city. "The Qurani taught us that strength and compassion aren't opposites. They're partners." The galaxy had indeed learned that lesson. In the months following the coalition's surrender, dozens of species had reached out to humanity with trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and mutual defense pacts. The same governments that once imposed sanctions on Earth now competed for human friendship and protection. But the most important changes were happening within humanity itself. The Shadow War had revealed capabilities that surprised even Earth's military leaders. Technologies developed in secret were now being adapted for peaceful purposes. The quantum phase drives that had made human ships invisible were being used to explore distant star systems. The tactical AIs that had outmaneuvered coalition fleets were solving problems in medicine, engineering, and environmental restoration. Dr. Nathan Pierce had established the Qurani Institute for Advanced Sciences on New Keral, where human and alien researchers worked together on projects that would benefit the entire galaxy. The first breakthrough came in medical technology, combining human genetic therapy with Qurani harmonic healing to cure diseases that had plagued both species for generations. Fleet Commander Webb received a transmission from Earth's Global Council as he prepared to formally transfer command of the human fleets back to peacetime operations. President Catherine Rodriguez appeared on his communication screen with a smile of pride and relief. "The galaxy sees us differently now," she said. "We're no longer the aggressive primitives they once feared or the weak isolationists they thought they could ignore. We're partners, protectors, and friends." Webb looked out at the stars, each point of light representing worlds where humans now walked as equals rather than supplicants. The Qurani believed that every species had something unique to contribute to the greater harmony of the galaxy. They were right.